service which we're of necessity but turning into a virtue in terms of co-leading both in the sanctuary and for the Zoom community from one of the Zoom screens. This service is also being streamed, so it's a pleasure to welcome those who are joining us on social media, and we look forward to sharing this post-Pesach Shabbat morning service as a community. We begin with Ma Tovu, and we'll begin in a traditional joyous Lewandowski mode. Ma Tovu, Ma Tovu, Ma Tovu Alecha Yaakov, Mishknotecha Yisrael, Mishknotecha Yisrael, Vani Barov Chazdecha Avovetecha, Eshtachave, Eshtachave, El Heichal Kodshecha, Be'yiratecha, El Heichal Kodshecha, Be'yiratecha. Adonai ahavti mon beitecha, Umakom mishkan kavodecha, Vani eshtachave vechra, Evracha lifnei Adonai osi, Vani tefilati Lecha Adonai et ratzon Elohim Barov chazdecha Aneni bemet Yishecha. For those who have been standing for that opening, please do be seated. I'd like to invite Ben, as we read an opening prayer about our community, to lead us in that prayer.
Eternal God, we come before you, surrounded by members of our community. With them, we share our happiness, and it becomes greater, our troubles, and they become smaller. May we never be too mean to give, nor too proud to receive. For in giving and receiving, we discover you and begin to understand the meaning of life. Let us not separate ourselves from the true strength of our community, the experience and wisdom of old people, the hopes of the young, and the examples of care and courage which sustain us. Give us an open mind and a generous heart to welcome those who need us and to admit your presence into our daily life.
And we all say together, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Ozeh Yisrael bigvura. We praise you, eternal God, sovereign of the universe, for the strength that comes to us through our community. La'olam yehei adam yirei shamayim besete uvagalui, umodeh al ha'emet, v'dover emet bilvavo. I wonder if I might invite Stuart, if you would, to read this traditional passage, Ribbon Kol Ha'olamim, sovereign of all worlds.
Thank you, Richard. Sovereign of all worlds, we lay our supplications before you, relying not on our merit, but on your abundant mercy. For what are we? What is our life and what our piety? What our goodness and what our strength? What can we say in your presence, eternal God? Are not the mightiest of us as nothing before you, the famous as though they had never lived, the learned as if they had no knowledge, the wise as if without understanding, for most of what we do is futile, and our life on earth is but a span. Our superiority over other animals amounts to little, for all is vanity. Nevertheless, we are your people, children of your covenant, and called to your service. Therefore, it is right that we should thank and praise you, proclaim your holiness, and daily say before you,
Ashreinu, Ashreinu, Matov, Matov, Matov Chelkeinu. Ashreinu, Ashreinu, Matov, Matov, Matov Chelkeinu. Umanaim, Umanaim, Umanaim Goraleinu. Umanaim, Umanaim, Umanaim Goraleinu. Umanaim, Umanaim, Umanaim Goraleinu. Umanaim, Umanaim, Umanaim Goraleinu. Umayafa, 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 Mayafa, Yerushateinu, Ashreinu. Umayafa, 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 Yerushateinu, Ashreinu. Please join with me wherever you are in this next passage as we open our second section of the service, Pesukei de Zimra. Baruch she'amar v'haya ha'olam baruch hu. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam. Hamuhulal b'fi amo. Meshubach umfo'ah bilshon chasidav va'avadav. Bishvachot uvizmirot negadelecha v'namlichacha malkeinu yachid chei ha'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai melech mehulal batishbachot. We praise you, sovereign God, to whom our thanks are due. As we come to this piyut, this medieval poem, written originally in beautiful Hebrew, we'll hear it in an equally beautiful translation, if June will read it for us.
At dawn and dusk I seek you, reach out and look to you. With soul athirst I yearn for you. I am a beggar at your door. The galaxies cannot contain you, yet you dwell in my inmost being. I hold your glory in my heart. My love for you exceeds my speech. So I will praise your name, Eternal One, as long as your breath of life remains within me.
We all join together. Praised be the Eternal One forever. Amen and amen. Praised be the eternal God, the God of Israel, who does wonderful things. Let God's glorious name be praised forever, and let the whole earth be filled with God's glory. Amen and amen. Nishmat kol chai, tevarech et shimcha, Adonai Eloheinu, v'ruach kol basar tefaer utromem, zichrecha Malkeinu tamid min ha'olam v'ad ha'olam ata el To continue this Nishmat prayer, I'm hoping Susie Barnett will lead us in it.
God of all ages,
of all generations and of all creatures, to whom our praise ascends. You guide the world with constant love, your children with tender care. To you alone we give thanks. Yet though our mouths should overflow with song as the sea, our tongues with exultation as the roaring waves, and our lips with praise as heaven's wide expanse. And though our eyes shine as the sun and moon, our arms spread forth like the wings of eagles, and our feet speed swiftly as hinds, still we could not fully thank you, eternal God, for your infinite kindness to our ancestors and to us. Therefore, the limbs you have formed in us, the spirit you have breathed into us, and the tongue you have set in our mouths, all shall unite to thank and praise, extol and exalt you, the sovereign God. Every mouth shall thank you, every tongue bear witness to you, every knee shall bend to you, every body bow down to you, every heart shall revere you, and every fibre of our being shall sing your praise.
For so it is written, all my bones shall say, who is like you, Eternal One? Therefore we extol you and proclaim your glory and praise your holy name, as it is said, praise the Eternal One, O my soul. Let all that is within me praise God's holy name. Thank you, Susie, and we continue together in song as befits this section of service, one of the Shabbat Psalms. Adonai malach geut lavesh, lavesh Adonai ositaza avtikon tevel baltimot. Nachon kisacha meaz me'olam ata. Naseu neharot Adonai, Naseu neharot kolam. Yesu neharot dachyam, mikolot mayim rabim, adirim mishpreyam, adir bamarom Adonai. Edotecha nemnu ma'od, leveitecha navat kodesh. Adonai leorech lamim, leorech yamim. Please join me in all your habitations. Yishtabach shimcha lad malkeinu, ha'el ha'melech ha'gadol v'ha'kadosh b'shamayim u'va'aretz. Ki lacha na'e Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu, shiru shvacha, halel v'zimra, barachot v'hodaot, me'ata v'ad olam. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher b'shirei zimra. And our service continues now on page 135, where we come to the Baruch Hu towards the foot of that page. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Hamevora, Hamevora, Leolam Vaed. We open the first of the prayers before the Shema in song, and then when we come to the second one, I'm hoping Miriam Sanders will lead us through the Ahava Rabbah, the Great is Your Love prayer, halfway down this page. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Yotzei or borei choshech, osei shalom shalom borei et hakol. Yotzei or borei choshech, osei shalom shalom borei et hakol. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Yotzei or borei choshech, osei shalom shalom borei et hakol. Yotzei or borei choshech, osei shalom shalom borei et hakol. And the Chatimah for that prayer, we join together and say, Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer Hamaorot. We praise you, O God, creator of light. Miriam.
Great is your love for us, eternal God, and abundant your compassion. Our ancestors trusted in you. Our ancestors trusted in you, and you taught them the laws of life. So be gracious to us and teach us. Incline our hearts to hear your words, to know and understand, to learn and teach, and with love to uphold the truths of your Torah. Enlighten us with your teaching, make us faithful to your commandments, and wholehearted in the love and awe of your name. For in love you summon us to serve you and proclaim yours unity. We praise you, O God. In love you have called your people Israel to serve you. Baruch atah Adonai, abocher ba'amo Yisrael b'ahava.
Thank you, Miriam. And as we focus on the sanctuary, I hope that we will see the ark being opened. And as it is opened, let us join in focusing on our own thoughts and our own relationship with the divine as we say together, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Eternal One is our God, the Eternal God is one. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kavod, Shem Kavod, Malchuto Leolam, Leolam Vaed. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol me'odecha. V'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavacha hayom al levavecha. V'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam. B'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha. Kshartam la'ot al yadecha v'hayu totafot bein einecha. Uchetavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha. You shall love the Eternal One your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. Let these words which I command you this day be always in your heart. Teach them diligently to your children. Speak of them in your home and on your way, when you lie down and when you rise up. Bind them as a sign upon your hand. Let them be like frontlets between your eyes. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Leman tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kadoshim le'Elohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, lihiot lachem le'Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem. As we resume our seats after the Shema, if we were standing, we come to, appropriately just after Pesach, a paragraph about redemption that I'd like Peter Calv to lead us through this prayer.
Be mindful of all my... Oh, sorry. Have I... Good and... Where are we? Sorry.
It's all right. Good and beautiful.
Oh, good and beautiful. I beg your pardon. Yes, I thought we were there. Good and beautiful and true, sound, established and enduring of the word, are these words now and forever. True it is, eternal God, that you are our sovereign God and Redeemer. You were the God and Redeemer of our ancestors. You are our Maker, the rock of our salvation. We have known you always as our helper and liberator. There is no God but you. Truly, you are first and you are last. We have no Redeemer but you. You redeemed us from Egypt and freed us from the house of bondage. Then, with great joy, Moses, Miriam, and all Israel together sang to you this song.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha neda b'kodesh nora tehilot osefele. Shirat hashach shipchu geulim l'shimcha al safat hayam, yachad kulam hodu v'himlichu v'amru. Adonai imloch le'olam avayet. Tzur Yisrael, kuma bezrat Yisrael, Go'aleinu Adonai, Tzevaot Shemo, Kadosh Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai, Gal Yisrael, Gal Yisrael. Amen.
Page 140, please stand. Adonai Sefotay Tifta Ufia Gita Hilatecha Adonai Sefotay Tifta Ufia Gita Hilatecha Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol, HaGibor, HaNorah, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei HaKol, V'Zolchei Chazdei Avot v'Imavot, U'Mevi Kula, Livnei Pleihem, למען שמו ביהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, בחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומרעיד הגשם, מזריח השמש ומוריד חתר. Mefalkel Chayim B'chesed B'chayei Meitim B'rachamim Rabim Somech Noflim Rofei Cholim Umatir Asurim Ukayem Unato Lishanei Afar Bivamocha B'Hagurot U'Migomelach Baruch atah Adonai, Chayei hametim. V'kadesh et shimcha ba'olam, v'shem shemakdishim oto b'shmei maro, kakatu al yad neviyecha. Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzivaot, Melech haaretz kavodo, kavodo malei olam. Baruch kavod Adonai bimkomo. Bimkomocha makenu tefia, timloch aleinu, ki machakim manachnu lach. Yimloch Adonai leolam, Elohim Zion, lador lador. Hallelujah. Lador ador nakid godlecha, ulenetzach nitzachim kedushatecha nakdish, v'shivchacha Eloheinu, Ibnu lo yamush olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. Go to the top of page 143. Rabbi, I wonder if you might lead us in, with guitar in the Yismachur.
Yismachu b'malachutecha, Shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'korei, Oneg Shabbat. Yismachu b'malachutecha, Shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'korei, Oneg Shabbat. Mekadeshei Shvi Shabbat. Kulam Yisbehu V'yitangu mituvecha Shabbat. Yismachu b'malakutecha Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat v'korei Oneg Shabbat. Yismachu b'malakutecha Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat v'korei Oneg Shabbat. V'hashvi ratzita bo v'kidasho Shabbat. Chemdat yamim oto karata Shabbat. Yismachu b'malachutecha Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat v'korei Oneg Shabbat. Yismachu b'malachutecha Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat v'korei Oneg Shabbat. Zecher l'maseh v'reshit Shabbat. Zecher l'maseh v'reshit Shabbat. Yimalachutecha Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat v'korei Oneg Shabbat. Yismachu b'malachutecha Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat v'korei Oneg Shabbat.
Kadshenu b'mitzvotecha, v'tein chelkenu b'toratecha, zavenu mitzuvecha, v'samechenu yeshuatecha, v'taher libenu le'ovdecha be'emet, v'hanchilenu Adonai Eloheinu, v'yahava u'ratzon shabbat kodshecha, v'yanuchu v'Yisrael, v'kadshei shemecha, Baruch atah Adonai, v'kadesh haShabbat. Praise you, O God, the holiness of the Shabbat. Eternal God, be gracious to your people Israel, and in your love accept their prayers. May our worship now and always be acceptable in your sight. We praise you, O God, whom alone we worship in reverence. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otecha levadecha b'yirah na'avod, Odim anachnu lach, she'ata hu Adonai Eloheinu, v'Elohei avotenu, le'olam va'ed. Sur chayenu magen yishenu, ata hu l'dor v'ador. Nodeh lecha u'mesaper tehilatecha, al chayenu hamsulim biyadecha. Yal nishmotenu hamkudot lach, yal zisecha sheb'chol yom imanu. Yal niflotecha v'tovatecha, sheb'chol eit erev v'boker v'tzorayim. Baruch atah Adonai, atov shimcha u'lecha le'er ha'adot. God, peace, welfare and blessing, grace, love and mercy to us, to all Israel, your people. As a loving parent, bless us with the light of your presence. For by the light of your presence, eternal God, you have revealed to us the law of life, a love of kindness and righteousness, blessing and mercy, life and peace. For it is good in your sight that your people Israel and all peoples be blessed at all times with your gift of peace. We praise you, O God, the source of peace. Baruch atah Adonai, Osei Shalom. Let's pause for just a few moments for our own private prayers and thoughts. words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable to you, O God, my rock and my redeemer. O say Shalom, Bimoromad, Uya say Shalom, because we are streaming the service this morning, as our usual custom, we will not be reading the individual prayers for healing, but Rabbi Richard now will lead us in the Mishabeh. I think that's on page.
The sung Mishaberach is not on a page in Siddur. Maybe you'll be able to look at it on screen if you wish in the sanctuary, or do join with me. We think of all those who are in need of healing this Shabbat. A particular attention, of course, is for all those in distress of any sort through the ongoing war in the Ukraine. And we also add our prayers for those we may know individually or collectively as a community who are going through times of difficulty at present. So please do join with me wherever you are. Mishaberach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishaberach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. For our Seder Kriyat HaTorah, we return to the Siddur, and we also return to the sanctuary with Elliot leading, and I think we will be on page 490, page 490.
Assemble the people, men, women, and children, and the strangers in your cities, to hear and learn, to revere the Eternal One, your God, and observe faithfully all the precepts of this Torah. And let their children, who do not yet know it, hear, that they may too learn to revere the Eternal One, your God. Anthony. Open our eyes to your teaching, make us faithful to your commandments, and wholehearted in the love and awe of your name. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Gadol Shemo. Gadol Adonai Iti, Ulam Shemo Yachdav. Adonai HaGadula, HaGadula. I presume it's going on the right, this part of the bimmer. Yes, everyone can see it from here.
Yes.
Good, that's it.
So from here, I have the pleasure of calling up to the Torah this morning Eliyahu ben Sadok Tzvi Vasara L'Kriyat HaTorah. Come forward, Elliot Port, to the reading of the Torah. And the format we are going to use this morning is Elliot will read the blessing before the Torah reading, and then we'll read the translation of the text. I will then read the Hebrew text as Elliot will follow it in the Torah scroll. And at the end of all that, he will conclude this section by reading the blessing after. Elliot, to you.
Thank you. Let me just make sure I've got the right spot. I have. Baruchu et Adonai HaMavorach. Baruch Adonai HaMavorach. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher bachanu mikol ha'amim na'atamanu et torato Baruch Adonai noten haTorah. Amen. Now let me just get various bits and pieces as to where this is. Yeah, okay. So the Sedra is Numbers 36, 1 to 13. Somewhere I have the page numbers. Yeah. I think. Rabbi, have you got them to read out? Because I don't know.
The Plaut Chumash page number is 1127. The Hertz Chumash is page 723. The green-covered Women's Commentary is page 1025. And if you have the smaller brown-covered Tanakh, we are on page 370.
If anyone wants to come up, by the way, and look at the Torah while I'm doing it, please do. If you want to come up and see.
Elliot, do you want to take us through the translation first? Do you have that there?
I have indeed. The heads of the ancestral houses of the clans of the descendants of Gilead, son of Machir, son of Manasseh, of the Hosemite clans, came forward and spoke in the presence of Moshe and the leaders, the heads of the ancestral houses of the Israelites. They said, "The Eternal One commanded my Lord to give the land for inheritance by lot to the Israelites. And my Lord was commanded by the Eternal One to give the inheritance of our brother Zelophehad to his daughters. But if they are married into another Israelite tribe, then their inheritance will be taken from the inheritance of our ancestors, and added to the inheritance of the tribe into which they married. So it will be taken away from the allotted portion of our inheritance. And when the Jubilee of the Israelites comes, then their inheritance will be added to the inheritance of the tribe into which they have married, and their inheritance will be taken from the inheritance of our ancestral tribe. I hope everybody's following that. Then Moshe commanded the Israelites according to the word of the Lord, saying, the descendants of the tribe of Joseph are right in what they are saying. This is what the Eternal One commands concerning the daughters of Zelophehad. Let them marry whom they think best. Only it must be into a clan of their father's tribe that they are married. So that no inheritance of the Israelites shall be transferred from one tribe to another. For all of the Israelites shall retain the inheritance of their ancestral tribes. Every daughter who possesses an inheritance in any tribe of the Israelites shall marry one from her father's tribe, so that all the Israelites may continue to possess their ancestral inheritance. No inheritance shall be transferred from one tribe to another, for each of the tribes of the Israelites shall retain its own inheritance. So the daughters of Zelophehad did as the Eternal One had commanded Moshe. Male, Tirzah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Noah, the daughters of Zelophehad, married sons of their father's brothers. They were married into the clans of the descendants of Manasseh, son of Joseph, and their inheritance remained in the tribe of their father's clan. These are the commandments and the ordinances that the Eternal One commanded through Moses to the Israelites in the plains of Moab, by the Jordan at Jericho.
Thank you, Elliot, and thank you, Judy, for capably shifting from one page to the other to help us through. And so we're reading this final chapter of the book of Numbers. Vayikrevu Rashi Ha'avot L'mishpachat B'nei Gilad Ben Machir Ben Menashe Mimishpachot B'nei Yosef Vayidabru Lifnei Moshe V'lifnei Hanesiim Rashi Avot Livnei Yisrael Vayomru Et Adoni Tziva Adonai Latet et Haaretz Benachala Bagoral Livnei Yisrael Vadoni Tzuva Vadonai Latet et Nachalat Zelophehad Achinu Livnotav Vahayu Le'echad mi b'nei shivtei v'nei Yisrael l'nashim v'nigra'a Nachalatan mi nachalat avotenu, v'nosaf al nachalat hamatei asher tihyena lahem, umi goral nachalatenu yigareya, v'im yihyeh hayovel livnei Yisrael v'nosafa nachalatan al nachalat hamatei asher tihyena lahem, uminachalat matei avotenu yigara nachalatan. Vayitzav Moshe et b'nei Yisrael al pi Adonai lemor, Kain matei v'nei Yosef dovrim. Zeh hadavar asher tziva Adonai livnot Zelophehad lemor. Latov be'enehem tihyena l'nashim, ach l'mishpachat matei avihem tihyena l'nashim. V'lo tisov nachala livnei Yisrael mi matei el matei, ki ish benachalat matei avotav yidbeku v'nei Yisrael. V'chol bat yoreshet nachala mimatot b'nei Yisrael le'echad mimishpachat matei aviha tihyeh le'isha. Lema'an yirshu B'nei Yisrael ish nachalat avotav. V'lo tisov nachala mimate lemate acher. Ki ish benachalato yitbeku matot b'nei Yisrael. Ka'asher tziva Adonai et Moshe, kein asu benot tzolof chad. Vatihyena, machla, tirtza, v'chogla, umilka, v'noa benot tzolof chad. Livnei dodehen lenashim. Mimishpachot b'nei Menashe ben Yosef hayu lenashim, vatehi nachalatan al mate mishpachat avihen. Ele hamitzvot v'hamishpatim asher tziva Adonai b'yad Moshe el b'nei Yisrael ba'arvot Moav al yadein Yerecho. And as that concludes the book of Numbers, we should take the opportunity to say to each other before we conclude the Torah reading, Chazak, Chazak, v'nitchazek. Be strong, and let us strengthen one another. Elliot.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, et chayei olam nata b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai notei haTorah. Amen. Baruch Shenatan Torah. Baruch Shenatan Torah. Yamo Yisrael B'kedushato.
And at this point, we move to the Haftarah for our service, and in honor of both her parents, for whom yahrzeits have happened and are happening today, we've invited Pam or Diva to read the Haftarah text, and Peter is going to read the blessings. So we come across to them now.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher b'chavon v'nviim tovim v'ratzai v'divreihem ha'ne'emrim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai abochei b'Torah v'Moshe avdo v'Yisrael amo v'ya'eh ha'emet v'tzedek.
Then allotment was made to the tribe of Manasseh, for he was the firstborn of Joseph, Machai, the firstborn of Manasseh, the father of Gilead, was allotted to Gilead and Basha, because he was a warrior. Now Zephad, son of Hepher, and son of Gilead, son of Maachah, son of Manasseh, and had no They came before the priest Eleazar and Joshua, son of Nun, and the leaders, and said, "The Lord commands Moses to give us an inheritance along with our male king." So according to the commandments of the Lord, he gave them an inheritance along the kinsmen of their father. Thus these fell to Manasseh, 10 portions, besides the land of Gilead. Received an inheritance along with his sons. The land of Gilead was allotted to the rest of Manasseh's descendants.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, sur kol ha'olamim, tzaddik b'chol hazvot. Ha'el ha'ne'emar, ha'omer ba'aseh, המדבר ומקיים שיכול דברות אמת וצדק. על למנוחה בכל באות ותפארת. על הכל אדוני אלוהינו אנחנו מודים לך, מברכים אותך, יתברך שמך בפי כל חי תמיד לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
Amen. Page 493.
Eternal God, whose dominion embraces the universe, we ask your blessing for our sovereign lady Queen Elizabeth and for all the royal family, for those who govern our country and for all who influence the quality of its national life. Make them conscious of their responsibility and teach them to exercise it in accordance with your will. May we all help to fashion in this country a society that excels in freedom and justice, tolerance and compassion, so that it may be a force for righteousness and peace in the life of humanity.
Amen.
May the one who blessed our ancestors bless all our brothers and sisters of the house of Israel who enter synagogues to pray and to give aid to those in need. May the Holy One to whom all praise is due hear their prayers and help them to fulfill their aspirations for all time.
Eternal God, our rock and redeemer, grant blessing to the state of Israel, created to fulfill an age-old dream and to be a haven for the oppressed. Inspire its leaders and citizens with faithfulness to the aims of its founders, to develop the land for the benefit of all its inhabitants, and to implement the prophetic ideals of liberty and justice. May they live in harmony with one another and in peace with their neighbours, and cause to come true once more the ancient vision. Ki mitzvot tetzei Torah, u'dvar Adonai Shalom.
Let us praise the Eternal One, whose name alone is exalted. Hodu aleretz v'shamayim, v'yameh erev miyamot, tehila l'chol chasidav, ibnei Yisrael, am karovo, hallelujah, hallelujah. Page 495 at the bottom. Lift up your heads, O gates, and lift up your heads, O gates, lift yourselves up, O ancient doors. Let the glorious sovereign enter. Who is this glorious sovereign? The eternal one, God of the hosts of heaven, truly the glorious sovereign. Kizot hobrit asher afrot et beit Yisrael yacharei hayamim hahem gu'im Adonai. This is the covenant I will make with the house of Israel in time to come, says the Eternal One. I will put my teaching within them and engrave it on their hearts. I will be their God and they shall be my people. No longer shall anyone need to teach a friend or a neighbor to know me, for they all shall know me, young and old alike. Hashivenu Adonai.
Thank you, and I do hope you will all please be seated if you haven't already, and we can come away from liturgy for a moment before we move to our concluding prayers. I will keep my words this morning brief, but I want to develop 2 points that come out of the Torah portion that we heard this morning. There are different ways in which one can look at the story that we read in the final chapter of the book of Numbers. It is the second installment of the story about the daughters of Zelophehad, this otherwise more or less unheard of man who had died in the wilderness while they were journeying without any sons and only the 5 daughters. The explanation for why he had died, or there's a suggestion that the rabbis developed that maybe he was put to death rather than died of natural causes, and they link this story about Zelophehad to the story of a man who was found wandering on and picking up wood to make a fire on Shabbat, and therefore was killed earlier in the book of Numbers. It's a nice association, a neat link, but certainly there's nothing in the Torah that makes that link any firmer than the rabbis' minds chose to make that connection. But some read the story in chapter 27 as being an important breakthrough in the rights of women for the daughters to be given their inheritance when there are no sons. And the same commentary in the same line of thinking will see this as something of a retrenchment against that. That the elders of their own tribe, the half tribe of Manasseh, will
Sorry, I think we've lost Richard for just one moment, but I'm sure he'll be back with us very shortly. So on that, hold on to that cliffhanger thought for 60 seconds, and we'll see if he rejoins.
I think I'm back already.
You are?
It was instantaneous, but that was intriguing. I hope you can hear me.
Yes. We can.
Good. So I think where you lost me was probably where I was talking about those people who will see Numbers 36 as a retrenchment, a reaction against the plea from the daughters of Zelophehad. And I think there is justification for seeing it that way. This morning, though, I want to suggest 2 comments that perhaps come through viewing the text from a different lens. The first thought I want to share with you is that with the case of the daughters being brought to Moses, one could argue that he was so taken with their case that he acceded to it and agreed to it without necessarily considering the consequences. In saying their case had merit, and the same phrasing is used in Numbers 27 about their case as is used here about the elders of their tribe's case when they say there's a problem with what was done earlier. In both cases, we're told, Cain, this is a good argument. This is a true argument. But so often in life and in my previous existence pre-rabbinate and as a rabbi, I see agreements that are made, negotiations that are concluded, that play well in the short term or seem to work for the person against whom or with whom you are negotiating, but haven't been concluded in a way that thinks about how does it fit for the rest of the world. At a global level, we might say, for example, that the Nord Stream pipeline between Russia and Germany was a good deal between those two parties at the time, but we now look at it and think that wasn't a very clever arrangement, was it? Was that with hindsight, or was that foreseeable with foresight? And one of the questions that often needs to be raised is, are we considering this negotiation in the round? How will it look to the other people? How will other people be affected by it? And that links me to my second principle. Because one of the great and often I feel understated values that is implicit in this particular chapter is the fact that the land of Israel was to be shared equally among all the people. And many of the laws that follow, the laws of the sabbatical year, the laws of the Jubilee, and the law that is made here in this chapter, are saying to us, the land is not yours to give up as you wish. You can't, whatever your circumstances, if you hit impoverishment, you can't sell your land and lose it forever. It has to return to you. The land has to be shared equally. And what this revision to the law that was made when the daughters of Zelophehad won their case in the court of Moses, the revision that was made was saying the land has to stay within that tribe. There can be no land passing from one tribe to another on a permanent basis. And the importance, the significance of that is that overall, no one tribe could become richer. No one tribe could accumulate wealth and witness the other tribes becoming impoverished. It was a fair system. Now, it wasn't a socialist or communist system that was saying all the land belongs to the collective, no one owns any property. It was saying everyone had their own stakeholding in the land. And that stakeholding would stay within their clan, within their tribe, forever. We've seen, perhaps in this country, what happens when wealth can accumulate to few rather than be retained as the opportunity or the ownership of many. And I think somewhere there does need to be a restoration of some kind of equity or balance between the haves and the have-nots for the peace of society. And I think that was ultimately why the law in the Torah was revised as it is here. It was to say there does have to be some equality, some equity in the distribution. It wasn't necessarily saying everyone would have land of equal fertility or of equal value, but everyone had their share. And when everyone has their share, when everyone has a stake, societies, I would argue, will always operate better. And a little gloss on that prepared drush is that as I was partway through the service, our door was knocked upon, and it was someone canvassing for one of the parties for the elections coming up in just under 2 weeks' time now. I'm not going to say which party. I'm not sure I heard correctly which one it was. But it does seem to me that it was a fortunate knock in the sense that it reminds me that we all have our opportunity and our responsibility to express our stakeholding in the democracy that is our country. And so we should look to ensure that we do that we cast our votes and we encourage all those around us, whatever you feel, whatever your thoughts, go and vote. Because the more people who do, the more the stakeholding is shared, the better our democracy functions and the better our society retains its civility. It's not that much a jump from the text of Numbers 36 and the scene that they portrayed in the wilderness to the society we live in today, and we can all play a part in making that society better. Wish you Shabbat Shalom and say Amen. And with that message, I want to take us to our concluding prayers, and we will be on page 520, page 520, where we will begin the Aleinu prayer together, here in all our homes and in the sanctuary. Page 520. Just wait for Judy to be able to enter that page and take us to it. And for those in the sanctuary, I hope you found it in your books as we sing together. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, אשר שם חלקנו לייחד את שמו, וגור עלינו להמליך מלכותו. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבות אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. As we come to the next paragraphs, I'm wondering, perhaps Judy, as you have been doing sterling work hosting, if you would lead us through the trusting in you paragraph, please.
Trusting in you, eternal God, we hope soon to behold the glory of your might, when false gods will vanish from our hearts and idolatry cease forever. Help us to perfect the world by bringing it under your unchallenged rule, when all will invoke your name, relinquish evil, and turn to you alone. May all who dwell on earth come to know that to you every knee must bend, and every tongue swear loyalty. Before you, let them humble themselves, and to your glorious name, let them give honor. Let all submit to your sovereign rule. May that time come soon and last forever, for ultimate sovereignty is yours, and is yours, and to all eternity you will reign in glory, as it is written, the eternal one shall reign forever. And it has been said, the eternal God shall reign over all the earth on that day, and eternal God shall be one and known to be one.
ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, Bayom hahu, Yeh Adonai echad, Ushemo echad. So we come to the second of the paragraphs, which is on screen before us, those who are on Zoom. We say, as we worship before you, O God, we think of those who once shared with us the joys and burdens of life and who are no longer in our midst. On this Shabbat, I want to recall and mention to those who may not know about this. I'm sorry, the Ordivas are having some trouble, I think, which is creating additional noise for those of us who are on screen. I wanted to mention to everyone that sadly, Jeff Soraf, who was a past chair of Sukkot Shalom Reform Synagogue, died in the past week. He died on Tuesday night. And rather poignantly, I noted that Facebook reminded me that he would have turned 80 today. So our thoughts are with all Jeff's family and also with the community of which he was, not that long ago, the chair of council for that community. We also, in this, the first month following his death, remember Howard Bober, a cousin of Gary Bronziet. The sorrow of bereavement is softened by the bond of love which continues to unite us with our dear ones, and by our cherished memories of them which we will always carry in our hearts. May all that was good in their lives remain with us as an influence for good. O God, grant consolation to those who are in sorrow and light to those in darkness. At this time we think about those who are experiencing the renewed sadness of a yahrzeit, and we include in our thoughts on this Shabbat Pam Ordiva, who has been marking the yahrzeit for her father and is today marking the yahrzeit for her mother. That we also remember with Michelle Lester, her mother Jenny de Swart, with Phil Casson, his brother Steve Casson, with Lois Bencher, her mother Amelia Adams, with Stan Marcus, who is remembering his first wife Marilyn Marcus, with Bernice Wolfe, who is remembering her mother Rachel Leah Borden, with Jackie Bronziet, who is remembering her father Morris Moss, with David Gold, who is remembering his cousin Laurelie Gold, and with Nina Koss, who will be remembering her husband Harry Koss. We ask God to teach us at all times to trust in God and to praise God's name as we turn to page 524, and there we join in reciting the Kaddish together. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, ba'alma divrach yerutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chaye echon v'yom echon, v'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kariv v'miru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach la'alam l'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitalei v'yithalal shmei dekudashah barichu. La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran ba'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei
Richard's frozen.
Yes, again, we seem to have lost Richard. I did notice as people were, I was watching people on the video, that people were finishing the Kaddish off by themselves. I think in a way that was quite a nice moment to go from having one communal leader to people having a moment of finishing it alone. So I wasn't going to propose to conclude the Kaddish, but I see Richard has just joined us, I think. I was just saying, Richard, that you froze for a moment, but people seem to finish the Kaddish off by themselves silently as I was watching it on the screen. So if I was going to step into your shoes, I wasn't proposing to finish it again. I was going to move on to the announcements, but I don't know if you had other plans.
I think that's right. I think that's right. It seems unfortunately that it's a day for the internet being problematic.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, yes, it's an unfortunate moment for it to go down, but and it's very a nice moment as well for people to have that prayer to themselves. I get to make my announcements now, just before we move to the concluding hymn. So firstly, thanks to Richard and Elliot for having our first fully hybrid co-led service. I'd be interested to get people's feedback, particularly people in Marlborough Road, but thank you. It seemed to, as far as the technology allowed us, it seemed to go very smoothly. So thank you both for that. Thank you also to Judy for hosting. And again, I think we had technical difficulties at the start, but that seems to be fixed. And thanks to Elliot Herbert, particularly for his help with that. And to Gary Friedman. I've got on my notes that Gary is running the audiovisual equipment and Elliot is back up for running the audiovisual equipment. So not like a big voucher confidence in you, Gary, but thank you for both of you, whatever roles you've taken in making the audiovisual equipment happen this morning. And thanks to Nick Young for helping solve stuff at the start. I think Lily Wheeler is running security and Viv Martin is organising the Kiddush, I believe. So thank you to both of you as well for your work at the synagogue building. Looking at this week coming up, we have 11s every day at 11 o'clock from Monday to Friday online. We have a service tomorrow, or rather Liberal Judaism has a service tomorrow at 3 p.m. for anyone who's experienced the loss of a child or the loss of the prospect of a child. And that is at the Liberal Jewish Synagogue in St. John's Wood at 3 o'clock. You can find details in our emails. On Monday, we have More Than a Game at 7 o'clock, led by Nick Young. On Tuesday, June Bradbury is giving another one of her virtual tours to the Tate, where she'll be looking at the works of Turner, on Tuesday at 7:30. On Wednesday at 8 o'clock, we have a Yom HaShoah commemoration for all ECAMP synagogues, which will be at Marlborough Road. On Thursday at 7 o'clock, we've got the Pastor's Word Club game led by Judy Berkowitz. And next Shabbat, we have a 6:30 service on the Friday night led by Sharon Law. And on the Saturday, we have Haida at 10:20. And then we have a Shabbat morning service, which will be led by Rabbi David, and it will be at Klor Tikva for those who are there in person. And that will be the bar mitzvah of Josh Richards. And it'll be our first bar mitzvah with high numbers of people attending in person for more than 2 years. So if you'd like to go and see that, that's at Klor Tikva, and it will be online as well. And part of the reason why Rabbi Richard is leading that is that, part of the reason why Rabbi David is leading that is that Rabbi Richard is away that weekend because it's his the wedding of his older daughter, the older of his daughters, Abigail. So mazel tov to you and the family on that, Richard. And with that, I pass back to you to conclude the service.
Thank you, Ben. And let's conclude with an Adon Olam. I was going to lead one that would have been difficult for everyone to continue if anything further happened on the internet. So let's instead do one that hopefully everyone is familiar with and we can all join in with, and then you can carry on regardless. Adon Olam Hashem Alach B'terem kol Yitzir Nivra Leit Nasa V'chefzo Kol Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Ve'acharei Kichlot HaKol Levado Yimloch Nora V'hu Haya V'hu Haveh V'hu Yeh B'tifara V'hu Echad V'ein Sheni להמשיל לו להכבירה, בלי ראשית, בלי תכלית, ולא העוז והמשרה. והוא אלי וחי גואלי, וצור חבלי בעת צרה, והוא ניסי ומנוס לי, מנת כוסי ביום אקרא. בידו אבקיד רוחי, בעת תישן והעירה, ועם רוחי גביעתי, אדוני לי ולא יירא. And our concluding blessing comes at the foot of page 529 and will overflow into page 530. Yivarechecha b'chol tov, v'yishmorecha mikol ra, v'ya'ir libcha b'seichel chayim, v'yachoncha b'da'at olamim, v'yisa p'nei chasadav lecha lishlom olamim. May God bless us all with all good. May God bless us and keep us from all evil. May God teach our hearts the meaning of life and grant us knowledge of the infinite. May God reach out to us all with tenderness, so that we may all have enduring peace. Amen. And to lead us in the Shabbat morning Kiddush on page 566, let me hand you back to Elliot and the community in the sanctuary. So do please at home make sure you grab your wine, your grape juice, something to say Kiddush with, and also hopefully some challah for you to use as well.
Don't stab me with it. Page 566. Zachor et Yom HaShabbat lekadsho. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, la'asot et HaShabbat, l'odot b'rit olam, beini u'b'nei Yisrael, otim le'olam, sheshet yamim, asat Adonai, et hashamayim et haaretz, u'bayom hashvi shabbat yinachash. Again, berach Adonai et Yom HaShabbat v'yikadshehu. Remember the Eternal One, bless the Sabbath and called it holy. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, v'orei hagafen. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. And happy Sabbath.
Shabbat Shalom to everyone, both in the sanctuary and in your various homes.
Shabbat Shalom.
All on Zoom, do please unmute